Hi, I'm Matt Lachlan. This video is a first for me. Owing to the nature of what I need to reveal and the need for it to be widely shared, I thought this would be the best option. Today, the House of Cards collapses on Tablelands Regional Council. The lies, the serious misconduct is laid bare. June 18th will be remembered as the day it all fell apart for TRC. 1 year and 1 month ago, the Patrick English Pavilion in Malanda was boarded up as a safety risk without warning. What began as a quest to save this historic building from demolition evolved into an investigation to expose the serious misconduct of TRC and hold those responsible to account. Sections 218 of the Crimes and Corruption Act states it is an offence to give the CCC a document containing information the person knows is false or misleading. Penalty unit up to 1 year imprisonment. I have documents proving that Tablelands Regional Council provided false information in documentation submitted to the CCC. Further, this information was part of a corrupt conduct assessment form, a statutory requirement that organisations must use when assessing if complaints involve suspected corrupt conduct warrant referral to the CCC. In that form, referencing a 2023 independent engineering report by TEG, CRC falsely states no component was assessed as being substantially damaged and likely to collapse unless when placed under ultimate loading, not under serviceability loading. This statement is a lie. What the report actually says in regards to substage water stage, substantial damage. Damage that has significantly compromised the structural integrity of the asset structural component. The asset structural component is likely to deform beyond limits under service load. The repair needs to be immediate. It does pose a risk to stakeholders or community users of a structure under serviceability loading. This cannot be dismissed as a simple mistake. Unbelievably, it gets far worse. For over a year now, I've been talking about the TEG report. The 7 pages of serious structural defects requiring immediate action be taken. Defects posing a stated risk to public safety. Nothing was done. No repairs were undertaken. The public was not warned of any risk to public safety. TRC recklessly endangered members of the public, breaching its duty of care, potentially reaching the threshold for criminal charges to be laid. TRC sought to use a one-line statement alleged to have been made by TRG about their report after it was provided to Council. In response to my second complaint, the General Manager of Community and Corporate Services stated, for your further information, in response to the 2023 TEG Structural Condition and Assessment Report, Council officers in June 23 sought clarification from TEG Consulting Engineering regarding any risk to public safety in using the pavilion, and were advised. The building is not considered as a risk to prevent its use. However, as deterioration continues, there will come a time where dilapidation will get to a point where the building is considered non-usable. That is the sole comment used as justification by TRC to disregard the stated risk to public safety and override the entire report. Of course, it could not and does not purport to do so. I believe that the comment was entirely in line with the report, with the caveat being the repair work being undertaken immediately as outlined within the report. It meant the pavilion did not need to be closed that day. It did not mean that if nothing was done, all serious structural defects requiring urgent repair were ignored, the building would remain safe. December 2023 brought the wettest cyclone in Australian history. The roof and supporting structure were likely placed under ultimate load. Did TRC act? They did not. Yesterday, information came to light that changed everything. Under right to information, I received the actual email conversation that took place, resulting in this comment. When I read the single line that TRG was asked to comment on, resulting in this statement, I realised that something was not right. Knowing the TEG report like a priest knows the Bible, I knew the comment was not contained within the TEG report. What TEG was actually asked to comment on was a statement, only if all items mentioned within the report are attended to ASAP, in our opinion, the House will give many years of ongoing service. The comment is from a different engineering report, from a different engineering firm entirely. A report that, in my view, is of such poor quality to be illegible. TRC had asked TEG to comment on another firm's report, then entirely misrepresented the comment, implying it referred to the TEG report. They then used this as justification for failing to act nor warn the public of any risk to public safety. What TRC concealed from their response in the first part of TEG's reply was, I interpret this comment as follows, relating to the third-party report. So instead of being a comment containing further detail relating to the TEG report, it was a response to TRC asking TRG a question to interpret a different report. Let that sink in. The above false information was provided to the Office of the Independent Assessor and the Ombudsman, who took that information as being truthful and used it to dismiss complaints. To be clear, in my view, TRC knew or ought to have known that it was providing false and misleading information to the public, to the Crime and Corruption Commission, to the Queensland Ombudsman and the Office of the Independent Assessor. In December, the Crime and Corruption Commission advised they were referring my complaint to TRC to investigate. TRC failed to do so. TRC made false representations about the complaint CCC referred and about a statement attributed to the CCC that it did not make. In February, TRC's Coordinator at Legal and Governance informed the CCC that my complaint had already been addressed in full by TRC and its complaint management process had been exhausted. Hang on a second. I lodged complaints with Council the 21st and 29th of July. Unsatisfied with the response, I elected not to contact Council further, but instead went to the Crime and Corruption Commission. It is literally impossible that TRC could have investigated or responded to any of my complaints pertaining the contents of TRC's second response or any issues raised post-July. It is an utter lie for TRC to state that the allegations raised in the CCC had been investigated and addressed. They had not been. Further, in relation to the parts of the complaint that had been investigated, false information was used by Council to decide not to refer the complaint to the CCC and using that false information as justification not to respond further. As I said to the CEO, the notion that is it acceptable for Council to provide false information in a formal response to a written complaint and then seek to use that false information as a mechanism to deny further communication and investigation is reprehensible and must be condemned at the highest level. In March, the new CEO responded to the CCC investigation stating, the CCC is satisfied with the way TRC previously investigated the allegations. Subsequently, clarification was sought from the CCC, who advised they had not conducted a review of their investigation of the matter. The CEO continued, I do not intend to provide a further response on allegations which have been fully addressed. Further, given that your concerns have been fully investigated and our complaints management policy and process have been exhausted, TRC will not enter into further correspondence with you in relation to these allegations. Should you continue to repeat the allegations, TRC will undertake an assessment of your behaviour in accordance with their unreasonable customer conduct policy and may determine you to be an unreasonable customer. In other words, TRC will lie, will provide false information, will refuse to investigate a complaint referred by the CCC, falsely state they already had, then will attempt to intimidate a complainant by threatening if allegations that have never been addressed or responded to are repeated, we will intervene and take action. The Ombudsman had already acknowledged that Council had not responded to elements of these complaints, stating the above matters had not been addressed by Council in its correspondence to you in July and August 2024. On the 21st of March, I sent a 20-page formal complaint to TRC CEO, that being my third in total and the first since July 24. Within that document, I outlined 26 serious allegations and questions that TRC has never answered. I outlined the false and misleading statements made by the CEO. The CEO refused to respond to 19 of the questions and allegations. Out of the 7 questions that were responded to, lodge an RTI was the response to 6. When I raised the public interest and the fact the RTI could cost tens of thousands of dollars, the response was narrow the scope. In essence, a single allegation was addressed. The response was absolutely laughable. I subsequently added a 27th very simple question. Do you, as CEO, guarantee that all assets managed by TRC are currently safe to use, having been regularly maintained, inspected by independent engineers as per regulatory requirements, and that any structural defects identified as posing potential risks to public safety have been rectified within the timeframes and manner specified in engineering reports? The CEO did not respond. Instead, the CEO elected to further threaten me with a final warning that if I raised further complaints, in other words, if I sought responses to TRC's lies and allegations, they would cut off communication over the pavilion. It is highly unlikely that what has occurred with the pavilion is confined to that one building. In my view, it is almost certain there are other buildings managed by TRC that are facing a similar fate, posing risk to public safety, justifying TRC's agenda to demolish historical buildings as per the rationalisation of assets policy. In my personal opinion, the conduct of the current CEO is utterly reprehensible and is the worst I've ever come across. Those of you that know me and know the fights that I've had over recent years will understand the significance of that statement. There's much more I could say, including the withholding of key information from councillors, including the heritage overlay, requiring councillors to vote on an issue unaware of the implications. There are many, many more unanswered allegations and revelations from RTI documents which will be left for another time. Late yesterday afternoon, I wrote to the Mayor and requested an urgent meeting to discuss very serious issues. I gave a deadline of lunchtime today to respond. That did not happen. Immediate action must now be taken. Full disclosure and a public apology for lying and misleading the public must be made without delay. TRC must self-refer itself to the Crime and Corruption Commission and notify the Queensland Ombudsman and the OIA that it supplied false information to these bodies. Disciplinary action must be taken against a number of key senior council officers. In my view, the current CEO's position is entirely untenable and should be terminated. The CEO is a self-declared lawyer, former Integrity Commissioner, and runs a business that advises governments on ethics and governance. This conduct, in my view, is unbecoming of an officer with these qualifications. TRC can clearly not be trusted to investigate itself. I will be making direct contact with the State Minister for Local Government over the coming days and will be requesting that the state government urgently intervene and formally investigate TRC. An active petition is running calling on state government intervention. You can see the Save the Malanda Pavilion Facebook page or Google State Government Investigation into Tablelands Regional Council for more information. Please sign and share this petition. Your signature really does matter. This issue needs media exposure. Misconduct clearly thrives in the darkness. We need your help. Please share this video and what has occurred to media outlets. The old saying, the cover-up is worse than the crime, definitely applies here. Tell the truth. What had occurred could have been mitigated 11 months ago if council had been honest. Instead, it lied and attempted to conceal what had occurred, exacerbating things exponentially. In doing so, this has left council exposed to potential litigation costs far surpassing what it would cost to restore the pavilion. This, of course, is in addition to other potential ramifications outlined above. Thank you.